Jó napot kívánok! Ez a .eu, a Pannon Televízió hetente jelentkező magazinműsora az Európai Uniós hétköznapokról. A mai adásból megtudhatják, mi az az államadósság és hogyan lehet megszüntetni, hogy hol tart az éhezés elleni küzdelem a világban, hogy hogyan alakult ki az európai választási rendszer, és megismerhetnek egy az Európai Unióban élő kutatót is, akinek nevéhez fűződik egyebek mellett a grafén nevű anyag felfedezése. Tartsanak velünk! 1979. júniusában szavazhattak először az európaiak közvetlenül európai parlamenti képviselőkre. Azóta 5 évente tartanak választásokat. A szavazási kedv azonban nem túl nagy, pedig a parlament hatásköre folyamatosan bővül. Mai műsorunk első riportjában megmutatjuk, hogy hogyan alakult ki az európai választási rendszer, és hogy hogyan alakult át az évtizedek során.
Hello! Üdvözlünk az Eurékában! Közel 500 millió európai szavaz 5 évente. A cél megválasztani az európai parlamenti képviselőket, akik képviselik őket az Európai Unióban. Ma a parlament az egyetlen európai intézmény, amit az állampolgárok közvetlenül választanak. De nem mindig volt ez a helyzet. Menjünk vissza 1958-ba. 1958-ban került sor az Európai Parlamenti Közgyűlés létrehozására. Franciaországban, Strasbourgban lett alapítva. Ez a város szimbolizálja a francia-német békét. Ennek a közgyűlésnek 142 tagja van az európai közösség alapító országaiból. Franciaország, Németország, Olaszország, Belgium, Hollandia és Luxemburg. A tagokat nem az európai állampolgárok választják, nemzeti parlamentjeik küldik őket. Először 1958. március 19-én találkoztak, kettős szerepük volt. Saját országok parlamentjének tagjai, valamint Strasbourgban Robert Schuman, a francia külügyminiszter elnökli a vitákat és szavazásokat az országgyűlésben. 1958-ban az Európai Parlamenti Közgyűlés hatalma korlátozott. Tanácsadói szerepe van, nem hoz döntéseket. Az Európai Bizottság, ami a közös európai érdekeket képviseli, és a tagállamok konzultációkat folytatnak vele véleményének beszerzése érdekében. Sok idő telik el, mire egy igazi parlament hatalmát megkapja. 1962-ben a parlamenti közgyűlés neve megváltozik. Létrejön az Európai Parlament, de még nincs semmiféle többlethatalma. Az 1970-es években Európa 6-ról 9 tagúvá válik. A parlament közelebb próbál kerülni minden tagállam állampolgárához. Hogy? Választások szervezésével. Az első választásokra 1979-ben kerül sor. 1979-ben először a történelemben 180 millió állampolgár választja meg az Európai Parlamentet 9 különböző országból. A kampány nagyon heves az európai választásokért, és az európaiak nagy számban vesznek rajta részt. A választások 1979. június 10-én kezdődnek. 4 napon keresztül járultak az urnákhoz a szavazók 9 tagállamban. 10-ből 6 szavazókorú ment el szavazni. Általános közvetlen választójog alapján szavaztak, ami azt jelenti, hogy a képviselőiket ők választják közvetlenül. 410 európai parlamenti képviselőt választanak. Az Európai Parlament első ülését megnyitom. A parlamenti megbízatás 5 év. Az Európai Parlament első elnöke francia, Simone Veil. A munka legnagyobb részét ő irányítja. Ő képviseli a parlamentet a külső világban és sok más európai intézményekkel való kapcsolattartásban. A parlament közvetlenül képviseli az állampolgárokat, ez nagyobb súlyt ad neki. Még mindig kevés hatalma van, de az európai költségvetéshez hozzájárulását adhatja. És a hatalma folyamatosan növekszik az idők folyamán. 1979 és 2009 között 5 évente tartanak választásokat. De mivel nincsenek nagy európai politikai pártok, a jelöltek a hagyományos pártokat képviselik minden országban. A kampányoknak kevés tennivalója van az európai kérdésekben, sokkal inkább a nemzeti politikai problémákra koncentrálnak. Ennek eredményeként a szavazók egyre kevésbé és kevésbé érdekeltek az európai választásokban. 30 év alatt az Európai Unió 9-ről 27 tagúvá vált, a parlament továbbra is nő. Az európai parlamenti képviselők száma 451-ről 754-re emelkedett. A parlament erősebbé vált, a legtöbb európai politikát illetően részt vesz a döntésben, ami hatással van az unióra. Egyenlő döntési hatalma van a tagállamokkal. De nem sikerült közelebb kerülnie az európai állampolgárokhoz. 2009-ben a választókorú polgárok több mint fele nem szavazott. Mégis a parlament olyan törvényeket fogad el, amik a mindennapi életre vannak hatással olyan területeken, mint mezőgazdaság, környezet, közlekedés és egészségügy. Viszlát!
Minden országnak van adóssága. Ez többnyire még évtizedekkel ezelőtt alakult ki. Az Európai Unió azt szeretné, hogyha az országok az adósságukat csökkentenék, egészen pontosan évente 5%-kal. Ha kérdései vannak az államadóssággal kapcsolatban, ha kíváncsi arra, hogy hogyan alakult ki, és hogyan lehet megszüntetni, nézze meg következő riportunkat, amelyben egy édesanyja magyarázza a jelenséget kislányának.
Hello and welcome to the news. The Belgian public debt is, as we know, very high, almost 107% of gross domestic product, which represents 387 billion euros. But a new calculation could literally make you fall off your seat. They claim that the public debt is actually 6 times, and social costs for the years ahead haven't been taken into account. So, if you stick just the current calculation, the amount of public debt is 34,000 euros that your children will carry on their shoulders into the future. Coming up next, a report.
Mum, what's all this about debt? Can you explain it to me? Am I already in debt too?
Are you in debt too? Yes, you are. You are already in debt. But debt is part of the way most countries work. You're funny. Hang on. Yeah. Okay. So, all the countries in Europe are in debt. Some more so, some less so. In fact, the biggest countries in the world, yeah, they're also hugely indebted.
Ah, so it's all right then. That's a good thing. Maybe you should get more of it.
Get more of it? It's not as simple as that.
So how do I explain this to you? Back in the 70s, before you were born, when a country's debt increased, their national bank would print new money to pay for schools and hospitals and motorways and civil servants, and it worked, more or less.
What do you mean, more or less?
Well, just before elections, politicians would misuse this possibility of self-financing out of debt, and this would lead to soaring inflation and skyrocketing prices. So, since the 70s, European nations have banned seeking recourse to domestic banks to service the debt. Instead, they now create bonds and sell them to private banks in order to get the necessary money. Professor Coleman, could you tell us who is holding public debt today?
Nowadays, public debt is being carried mostly by commercial banks from the Eurozone and from outside. But we see day after day that the central bank is purchasing public debt in order to refinance the commercial banks.
So do you get it, Lucy? Public debts are paid off through government securities issued by commercial banks. But it's not real money that generates any wealth. The system is just a lot of hot air. You see, private banks, they don't work for nothing. They must be paid, and it's the interest rates that determine that. And that's where the problems start.
Well, why is that, Mum?
Because interest represents a lot of money, and that increases the debt burden.
But who fixes these interest rates?
Very good question, Lucy. Let's ask the professor.
In the short term, it's the central bank that decides the evolution of interest rate. In the long term, it's more market influence. Of course, the ECB and the central bank will have an influence, but there are many other factors like the risk in the long term.
But what does that mean, Professor? Are the interest rates different for different countries in Europe?
Yes, indeed. Just take the example between Germany and Spain. Germany has more probability to be able to repay its debt than Spain. The market is considering that, and Spain will pay a higher interest rate than Germany.
So it's a bit like in school, right? So in school, if you do your homework, you get good marks. It's kind of the same for countries. If their economy is stable and if their political situation is stable too, that means they get really good marks, like a AAA. And if things aren't going so well, then they don't get such good marks, like a AA, a B, or even a C. And that's what drives the interest rates up.
Yes, indeed.
Mum, we need to pay off our debts as soon as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Look, that's why when the euro crisis hit hardest in 2012, the EU created what was called the Fiscal Compact. And that's when countries have been obliged to bring down their public debt to maximum 60% of what's called gross domestic product. And no dragging their feet. They have to keep up the pace of reducing their debt by 5% every year.
But how can you just go on and cut public debt?
Very good question. Well, there's a few ways, but let's say you could write off your debts, but then lenders, they're not very happy. Or the government could sell off what's called public assets, like the postal service or gas or electricity. But you know what? People like you and me, the public, we're not very happy.
Professor, what do you think is the best solution?
The first would be growth, because if the economy grows, then of course the cost of debt decreases. There is also inflation, because if you have inflation, it means that the value of money decreases in the future and that it's easier to repay public debt.
Mum, one last question. Can a country go bankrupt?
Yes, a country can go bankrupt and stop reimbursing its debt to its lenders. But then the next time it wants to borrow money, well, no one wants to lend money to the country. So in the meantime, we've just got to pay off our debts.
Az Európai Unióban is probléma az agyelszívás, vagyis az, hogy a kutatók, tudósok külföldre távoznak. Akad azonban ellenpélda is, vagyis olyanok, akik az EU-n kívülről érkeztek, és most az Unióban kamatoztatják tudásukat. A most következő interjú egy orosz felfedezővel készült, akinek nevéhez fűződik egyebek mellett a grafén nevű anyag feltalálása, amiért fizikai Nobel-díjat is kapott.
Crystalline sheets of carbon that are just one atom thick could be one of the future's most versatile high-tech materials. In 2003, Konstantin Novoselov was one of two researchers at the University of Manchester who first synthesized them, a feat which earned them the Nobel Prize for Physics in 2010. When Professor Novoselov came to the European Parliament for a hearing on technology, innovation and industrial competitiveness, we asked him about potential applications of this coming technology.
Graphemes are a field of research which has lots of applications, lots of potential applications, even though it's fairly small in economic terms until now. It's still in the single-digit millions, but the future potential seems to be vast. Could you just briefly explain to us where the future might be for it?
Well, the possible applications of graphene are really following from its unique properties. And in graphene, what we've got is a one-atom thick fabric, which is extremely strong. It's very conductive, it's transparent, it's practically impermeable to anything. So its applications are basically consequences of those. So you can use it for applications where you need both conductivity and transparency, like touch panels or coating for solar cells or for printed electronics, for flexible electronics, for ultra-strong composite materials, and so on. And what I should probably say, as we develop those applications, we also do quite a bit of science as well. And what we found now that graphene is not alone. We actually work on the whole family of those crystals, which are only one atom thick. And personally, collectively, they cover even broader range of properties. We find those which are optically active now, so potentially they can be used for many other applications as well.
Now, graphemes are an application or a field of research, let's say, where the applications are fairly obvious and fairly easy to explain to a layman like me, or to politicians also. When you do more, well, say basic research with less obvious applications, do you find it a lot harder to communicate it? Do you need such fields of research to actually talk about the importance of research?
Well, that's actually what we are hoping to see. That you see, graphene is quite unique material. It has a combination of unique properties. So many superlatives are really forced and pressed into one material here. So we're really hoping for the applications which would use all of them, and we really hope for the applications which we cannot possibly predict.
You're of Russian origin, but you have chosen to do your research in the EU, in the UK. What were the reasons for this choice? I mean, we're talking about a brain drain or brain leakage from the EU at the same time. You chose to come here.
Well, there are a number of reasons. First of all is, of course, we gathered together in Manchester. There is a very coherent group of people who work together in various aspects of material research, starting from graphene, from electronics to biosensors, bioapplication, composite materials, power, and so on. And of course, the conditions which were created for us in Manchester are quite unique, and especially with the newly constructed National Graphene Institute, we are probably on the par with the best research centers in the world.
What kind of advice would you give to other European universities, research institutions, in order to become as attractive?
Well, probably the main advice is to invest in fundamental science and believe in fundamental science. The breakthroughs in technologies in the long term are much more promising rather than incremental small research.
Here in Brussels, you're meeting some of the people putting together an important part of the EU's budget, namely the EU's research budget. If you could condense your message to them into one sentence, or a few sentences, what would it be?
Well, I would definitely encourage to increase the science budget, because that's where the future of Europe lies, and it was extremely worrying to see that some of scientific programs in Europe, such as ERC, were prone to cutting. That's the last thing Europe should be doing. We need to support European science, and the innovation economy is a consequence of the science which we are doing now. It will pay off in 5 years' time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
...25 év alatt a felére csökkent az alultáplált emberek aránya a világon. Ennek ellenére még mindig több millióan éheznek. Az Európai Unió szeretne segíteni rajtuk határain belül és kívül is. Mutatjuk, hogy hogyan.
In 1990, more than 1 billion people around the world were suffering from hunger. Has the situation improved in the past 25 years? Yes, a little, but a lot still needs to be done. The target of the United Nations in 1990 was to halve the proportion of undernourished people around the world in 25 years. Even if the goal has almost been reached, in 1992, 23% of the global population was undernourished, against 14% in 2013. Still, the number of people suffering from hunger is declining too slowly. The explanation for this is that while the proportion of undernourished people has decreased, the world population has grown by 2 billion in 20 years. In the end, there was still 842 million, or 1 in 8 people suffering from hunger in 2013. But if the United Nations, donor countries, the European Union and other non-governmental organizations had done nothing, this figure would be much higher. So let's allow some cautious optimism. What has worked well and in which regions? In Yemen, in the Arabian Peninsula, for example. There, the United Nations program provides rations of wheat and vegetable oil to families that send their daughters to school. As a result, within a few years, more than 200,000 girls have been enrolled in school, and more than 1 million people have been able to eat their fill. In Malawi, in Africa, wintertime agricultural projects are helping to save people from hunger. An irrigation project enables farmers to improve their farming practices. They also receive training in better seed systems. And the European Union in all this? During the first half of the 2000s, the sharp rise in food prices slowed down the fight against undernourishment. This was partly due to speculation, which is why the European Parliament successfully fought to bring into force the directive MiFID2. This law reduces commodity speculation on European stock markets. The EU and its member states are the largest providers of development assistance funds. In 2012, they provided 55 billion euros in aid. 60 million people worldwide have already benefited from EU food aid. Even in Europe, nearly a quarter of the population doesn't get enough to eat. That's why the European Parliament obtained an extension for food aid within the EU itself. Between 2014 and 2020, 3.5 billion euros will be allocated to the fight against hunger and social exclusion.
A Pont EU-t látták a Pannon Televízióban, egy hét múlva is várom Önöket, szombaton fél hétkor. Viszontlátásra!